Hello and welcome to the Feedback Show. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How's everything going, Dad?
Uh, I'm well, Steve. It's going well, Steve. How are you, mate?
Yes, I'm all right. Busy?
Good. Yeah, it's nice to see such an array of different subjects on today. We've had just a quick sneak preview, and I'm always amazed at what people attempt. I wouldn't have attempted half of what they've attempted when I first started, but golly, haven't they done well?
They have.
And as you'll see, but there's a lot of advice. The great thing about this, Stephen, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is that by presenting us with these pictures, it gives everyone an opportunity to see how they can do the tweaks. Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh gosh, yes, of course, and so on and so on. And this is what this is all about, really. I only wish that I'd had this when I started out. So I can see why people are sending their pictures in, because not only do we give them advice, but it's great for everyone and everybody's benefiting. So long may it continue, folks. You carry on sending them to. We love to see them.
Indeed. Okay, let's start with the first one then, or first two from Pam. Pam says, "Hi Steve and Colin, I've attached 2 pastel paintings I recently did since the arrival of my new pastel pencils from you. I realised too late that I was using pastel paper, not watercolour paper, and therefore it didn't spread properly and it caused the paper to buckle. Anyway, I've attached the end result for you to look at, and I can see that I put the car in the wrong spot, but it still seemed to work okay. Should we look at the figures in the mist first then?"
Yeah, I think considering the situation you were in there, you've done blooming well, because pastel paper is not designed for watercolour, as you found out. But nonetheless, you've stuck to it, and that's great. Good for you. I agree with you. The balance of the picture's distorted because of the car. If you look at mine, we've always talked about 2/3 rule, Steve, haven't we? And you've got to think about that when you're composing a picture. Now, it's not only 2/3 up and down, it's across as well. Now, but fortunately, going across, you haven't done too badly, because you put the figures in more or less in the same position that I have. So that works out all right. It's the gap between the top of the car and the top of the picture that where it fails, really. You've got too much. I've filled mine in quite well, as you can see, and that was all made up too. I mean, there was no reference picture I had to use there. So it's something you've learned already, for goodness sake. You've done very well considering you were just starting out, and especially on a picture as difficult as that. So you've done well. I think it's great. The only little criticism I've got is we've got a little bandy person in the middle. See what I mean? There's something you've got to be careful. The person with the umbrella, if you look at mine and you look at theirs, he's got a little bit bow-legged.
Oh, I see.
These are the things that, unfortunately, with watercolour, you can't do much about. Once you've done them, you've done them. But the drawing really is really important. And I notice when you go on, I think, did we actually say here you didn't you use freehand on this? Yes, I think right at the we said I did both of these paintings in the craft tools and did them freehand. Now, I admire, as I've said before many times, people that do freehand work. I admire them tremendously. However, you've got failings there, because you can see the people aren't quite in proportions, and this is one of the reasons why they're not, because you haven't used any visual aid. If you are averse to visual aids, then there's nothing I can help you with there. But if you like the idea of visual aids, I would suggest you do use them. The square drawing is a great system, or using my line drawings is another way of doing it. But by using visual aids, you train yourself to see things that you otherwise would dismiss. And I expect, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I suspect when you looked at your picture, you thought they were fine, although you were copying my original. See how you've gone wrong, simply because you haven't kind of got that proportions correct. And one of the other things about it, Steve, and you know this too, is we tend to make figures a bit fatter than they actually are. And this is what happens. I mean, I know you get tubby people. You could argue that those two people in the front are tubby. But this is not the point. The point is you're trying to produce a picture on similar grounds to mine. And it doesn't quite come off. But that's another thing. Now just go to the cat, shall we? Because
Yes.
I think I've said enough about that.
Okay, so she goes on to say, next, I thought I'd try the cute little kitten. Very happy with him. However, I noticed that he doesn't have the same density of colour as yours, even though I went back over a few times and applied more depth of colour. I had trouble with the left eye being larger, and I've attempted to adjust both eyes, but it doesn't seem too bad now. I can see that he is a bit longer with the nose, but he is unique. His name is Sam.
Good for you. Well, no, I mean, you've done very well. Again, the square drawing side of it would have given you a slightly better proportion for that. And don't dismiss that, because that's where I think possibly you have this, you think about it, I've got to draw my own pictures. Nothing wrong with that, but you've still got to train yourself to do that. As far as the cat's concerned, no, I think you've done very well. And you've certainly got both eyes looking well. And it's good that you've made those adjustments or tried to make those adjustments. As far as the depth of colour, that's quite easy. You've probably put too much base colour on. This is usually the situation. I say, well, you've got to use the ivory and you've got to use the white and so on. But if you put too much of that, then the stronger colours, the 187 and the 283 that you're putting on top of it, won't register very well because they're going into like a spongy base. You see what I mean? So you don't get the richness. So it's a question of balancing a little bit. If you don't put enough base colour on, then the colour becomes too rich. So you've got that balance between the two. That's what you've got to look at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, lovely. Well, thanks, Pam. Thanks for sending the work. I hope that's helped, and I hope that's helped others watching too. Next one's a bit of advice for Robert here. Robert says, hi Steve, I'm trying to do a pastel painting of a church with the grounds full of, what are they, Dad?
Crocuses.
Crocuses. Not heard of that word. I've done the church, but I'm finding the crocuses impossible to do. If I email you the photo, would you be able to give me some tips on how to simulate them?
Yes, I would. The first thing I would say to you, don't try to draw crocuses or any other flower exactly as you see them. You can't do it. If you did, it would look silly anyway. You've got to go down the impressionistic rows here. And I've got lots of examples of that in my pictures that I've put on the member site. So you'll be able to look and view back on them. What I would have done here probably is taken, you see where that line, that dark line is, right underneath the church. If you look at the church and you look at like a line right across where the crocuses begin, and then you drop down and you see a shadow. Now, what I would have done probably is start from that shadow and come forward. In other words, lose some of the crocuses, because I don't think it would have mattered very much, and that would have made it a little easier for you to, put them all in. Because when you look at all that, I think, how on earth am I going to put all them in? So I would restrict as much as you can, bring them, cut out as much as I wouldn't cut the front right at the beginning, because I like that green, and that sort of shows you it's not only a nice balance at the bottom, but it's very important. But I would trim it a little bit. I would cut some of those crocuses out.
Okay.
And treat it like an impressionistic picture. Now, the only way I can give you an example of that is to go to maybe, trying to think, what about the windmill that I did with the rapeseed in the front?
Yeah.
Now that very similar idea. Rapeseed, I know, is very different to crocuses, but it's the same idea. And if you look at that and follow that and study it, you'll see that I don't draw every bit of rapeseed in. As I'm suggesting, you don't put every crocus in, but you could use all the colours. Another way of looking at it, I've just realised, Steve, is if you, instead of looking at that with clarity, if you squint your eyes, half close your eyes and look at the crocuses, a lot of the detail disappears. And that's how I would like you to present it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Well, this is what I do, you see. I mean, I don't squint my eyes, but I imagine I'm doing that. So I'm actually putting in a kind of representation of them rather than actually trying to draw them. Now, that's a great tip, not just for you, Robert, but for everyone, if you're doing impressionistic work.
Yeah, it changes the perception of the picture, doesn't it?
It does, but you still see it, don't you? It's not that you're not seeing them. You are, but you're. And the other thing is, if it's the crocuses, which is the main reason for doing this, then fine, you need to put a little bit more effort in. But if the crocuses are there to support the church, then it's the church that's more important. So the crocuses mustn't take your eye. They must lead you into the church. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Fantastic. Well, that's really interesting. Thanks, Robert, for sending it in. I hope that helps. Next one from Brian. Hi, Steve and Colin. Wondering if you could critique this picture of a purple finch that I drew. If Colin could please talk about the bird's feathers and let me know if I'm capturing the proper look. Sincerely, Brian.
Yeah, well, let me tell you straight away, you've done a blood good job at that. Excuse my French. I think that really is good. It's very representative of the bird. You can see it clearly. The only reservation I would have is that the feathers perhaps are a little bit too precise. What you could have done with is, if you haven't got it already, is one of the ivory pointed colour shapers probably would be the better ones to use. And on your bird, you just very lightly go over and in the same direction that you've used the pastel pencil and fogged them out. And that would have given you exactly the same representation as of the bird. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're slightly softer, aren't they, on the picture?
Yes, that's right. And it's fluffier, if you know what I mean, featherier, if you know what I mean. But, if you don't fancy doing that, leave it as it is, because I think you've done a really good job. I would criticise a little bit the branch again. We've had this several times, haven't we, recently? Branches look flat. It looks like a flat branch. Well, it's a nice idea to put a round branch, and so all you need to do is follow the strength you have right at the bottom of your picture. Follow that strength up and gradually let it diminish as it reaches the top. On the photograph, the background is just darker and the branch is a little lighter, and that's something you could have done. That would have made a bit of difference to the picture. So that's that. Now, the other thing I would say is the tail feather that you have there doesn't stand out enough. So really, it would have been a good idea to make that a little darker. It sets it apart from the branch. See, if you hadn't had that line between the tail feather and the branch itself on the top, it would all merge into one. You with me? So you've got to think of that and think, I've got to make sure that I pull one away from the other. And in this case, you've got to pull the branch away from the tail feather, making the tail feather darker. That would have helped. Okay. And another thing too, Steve, I've just thought of that. You know the texture you have in the branch. Now, if you use that pointed ivory colour shaper on that in the same way that I'm telling you to use it on the feather, that would have smoothed it out. You'd have still retained them, but it was smoothed it out and made it just look just a little bit more realistic. Anyway, that's my tips, Brian.
Okay.
Bloody good job. That was really, really good. Congratulations.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. Next one is from Roz. Hi, Stephen and Colin. Your help with this partly completed picture would be much appreciated, please. Despite the reference photo, she was a black dog, and I'm still working on several areas. Number 1, the eyes are causing me problems as the reference photo is distorted by the flash. Should I enrich and darken the iris, and how can I improve the glint? Should we start there?
Yes, certainly. Certainly, what I would suggest you do, can I first of all say that I would have extended the back of the dog right away into the side of the picture, not done what you've done. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
At the back of the dog, or the side of the dog, should I say. go right away into the edge of the picture.
Yeah, I
What
understand
you've
that.
done there doesn't work quite well. Rather like the dog of the photograph, but just extend it. Just follow the fur going back. That would make it look a little bit better, in my view. As far as the eye is concerned, which is what we're after here, yes, I think I would. And certainly, when you've got a situation like this, and the light in the eye is dominating, which it is in this case, I think you should actually make that smaller. The actual light in the eye, halve it. In fact, you could even put just a little grey on it so it doesn't look quite so bright. That's what I would have done. And as far as darkening is concerned, yes, I would. I'd certainly darken the top of the eye a little, because where you have an eyebrow, you always have a shadow. Humans do, cats do, all animals do. They have a shadow there, and you could do it. Now, you'll argue with me, say, well, it isn't on the picture, the photograph. No, because it was a flash.
Yeah, that's a good point now.
Goes straight into the picture, so you don't get that shadow. But as far as art's concerned, you've got to kind of make that slight adjustment. That's how I would do it. It would work very well then if you did that.
Okay. And number 2, how should I crop it?
Crop it. Well, now you have a problem, because you whatever you do, you're going to have a square picture. What I would do probably is extend the back, as I've told you, to go off the picture. And then I would bring the top and the bottom down because you've got a lot of top and you've got a lot of bottom which don't do nothing at all. You can do it with your little magic tool if you like, Steve.
Yep, okay.
Come down to when I tell you. Stop. Yep, well done. You know how to do this now, don't you? Up. Up a bit more. And a bit more. Down a bit. Down a little. That's probably about right, I would think. Now, you see how you've got a square picture now? This is what I don't like, square pictures. But you haven't got any choice. If you did have a choice, then you would have made the dog a little longer.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you don't want to do that, there is another option. Can you put that back to where it was, Steve?
Yep.
Right, now come from the side this time, and you can come in on the right-hand side and cut the paw off, just as it is in the photograph. That's it. You want to keep all the ear in. Now the other side, and you can come in right tight now to that, even more than that. Chop the ear off. That's it, chop it off. Okay, now come from the top down a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. Yeah, that's probably about right. That's fine. And up a bit. Okay, now let it go. See? In fact, probably, who is it? Sorry.
Roz.
Oh, Ross. Sorry, Ross. In fact, that's what I would do. I'd forget what I told you about extending the back. Do that, because that looks great as it is. Okay. People worry about chopping paws off and chopping ears off, but you see me do it all the time now, if it works, because the focus of attention is on the head.
Okay.
All right, so that's what I would do. That's how I would present the picture.
Okay. Number 3, have I overdone the sheen?
Yes, a bit. What can you do about it? Not a lot. I think probably all you can do is just darken the sheen a little bit if you want. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't go too mad there, because that's not too bad. Mm-hmm. Considering what I would say is you've done a brilliant job on a rotten photograph, to be honest. That's a terrible photograph. I would never even have attempted it. Mm-hmm. So congratulations on that.
Okay. Any other tips? Well, you've mentioned...
Oh, I've given them all, I think.
I think you've given plenty of tips on this one, so we'll leave it there. Thanks, Roz. Okay, the next one comes from... I don't really know how to pronounce your name. Ivor?
Ivor, I would say Ivor, yeah.
That's what a very lovely name. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Hi, Steve and Colin. The pictures I have of Bob are few, and the picture I drew after... Oh, Okay, so he's attached a few pictures there.
Mm.
I had to edit the picture to white and grey so I could better see the shapes. The colours of Bob, I looked at another picture. How would you draw Bob with those pictures? I know my drawing doesn't look like a picture at all. The head isn't quite right, especially the ears and eyes. So what would you do here, Dad? Tricky one.
It is tricky. And again, I probably wouldn't have done it because of the degree of difficulties you've got there, especially when you're starting out. Even now, I wouldn't do it. But you've got to look at this sensibly, I think. And what I would do is trim. Let's trim your picture, shall we? So we trim it a little bit because there's a lot going on, or rather, there's not a lot going on beyond the dog. So you've got to kind of come in a little bit. And I think probably what I would have done is to cut the back off the dog. So let's come
this way, you mean?
Yeah, come on from that side. Yeah, go right in from that side. Now, I think we've got to make it landscape. So keep going, Steve, a little bit more. See, the problem we have here is I was going to tell you to come down at the top and down. Let's follow let's stick to that one on the left-hand side, then go down from the top a little. That's it. That's fine. And come up. You have to cut all of that, I'm afraid, off there. Not quite as much as that. You've got to leave a little bit of grounding. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then come in on the other side a little bit. That's too much. We're making it square. You see the problem we're coming against. You see, that focuses now. You're focusing on the animal more. Leave it at that for the minute. It's a better picture than it was before, isn't it? Now, what you can do is get grips with what you've got there, and I certainly would have lost the. You can keep the colour if you like, if you fancy the colour, but you don't have to put all that grey alongside his ear. You know, you've got a little grey line alongside his ear. Mm-hmm. You could just make that blue all the way through now, because you don't need to put anything in the background. So that could all be fogged out. Now that would improve the picture enormously. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to work on the picture and work on the head. Now you've got quite a good picture of him there up above. You know, the one with him standing up, and it wouldn't really be difficult to put that in. But the drawing's wrong. Now, if you've drawn that freehand, I suspect you may have done. Same situation that we talked about earlier. You've got the proportions wrong. You know what I mean? It's a square face where the one that sort of tapers a bit. Mm. And this is why it's not looking right. And the eyes are definitely in the wrong place. So you've got all of these little things that you've got. And you could have put the head of the dog that's standing up on that easily.
Yeah.
And it would have improved it, you know. And that's my job here, to help you improve the picture, because it's very, very difficult when you get a picture like this to do anything with, especially if it's a commission. If it was a commission picture, I mean, this is your own dog, so it's okay. But if it was a commission picture, you don't do it. You simply don't do it. Just say, I'm really, really sorry, and I have every sympathy, but I really can't do this picture justice. That's what I would say if it was a commission. Mm-hmm. But when it's your own picture, it's not so bad. You can play around and experiment, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But with a commission, you're kind of arms up your back. You've got to produce something, so the pressure's on you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think there's some good tips there. Again, it sort of echoes the square drawing or drawing aid to help, especially when you're combining pictures and things like that. You've got to make sure your proportions are right.
Yeah, don't be too cut and dry with this square drawing. I still use it. So if I'm using it after 30 odd years, and I use it because I make absolutely sure that I've got my pictures accurate. If they're not accurate, don't matter how good I am at putting fur in and feathers in and skin in, it's not going to work. Okay. I hope that helps.
great. So the next one is some advice for Gabrielle here. Hi, Colin and Steve. Please find attached a picture which I need some advice regarding composition. The customer's asked if I can paint this picture. How would Colin set this out without all the stuff that is going on in the background except the Ferris wheel? She said it can all be green grass, the racetrack is not important, and she would like to have it more carnival looking if possible, but isn't sure if adding more would be too much. I don't know if it is too much to ask if Colin would give me a rough outline of the scene, how he would paint it. I've no idea where to start.
Oh, well, I know how I would do it. First of all, the most important thing is what? The horse and the rider, I would think. Definitely. The Ferris wheel is secondary of importance. So the Ferris wheel and all that's going on around there will have to be curtailed, really. You don't really want it. Now, we can't split this picture up too much, so I'm going to have to explain what I would do. I would come in. You can actually do this, Steve, if you like. Come in a little bit on the left-hand side, right-hand side. Come in a little bit until I tell you to stop. Right-hand side. Yeah, well, that's probably about right. Yep, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can't do this, but if we could, I'd put the rider, imagine grass going back to the fence, you know, that fence there, the white fence, the edge of the white fence where the sand meets the fence. Yeah. Now, imagine that. We've just got to imagine it at the moment. If that was all grass, so put it all grass, and then put the horse and the rider up to the right-hand side of that Ferris wheel. So the horse's back sticks out to just under the star, you know, in the middle of the Ferris wheel. Just say that for the moment. That means the rider will probably be just the other side of that palm tree. Now, that would work quite well if you want the Ferris wheel and the rider and the horse in. Yeah. And you would have to trim that right up. And you can do this now, Steve, to the bottom. Do it from the bottom up. You'll have to cut the rider off, I'm afraid. Right up, right up, right up, right, 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 right. Yeah, that's not a little bit lower than that because you've got to get a bit of grass in, you see. Now, that's how I would present it.
But so you would have them there.
Exactly. Yeah. I would have them there. Yeah. Well, no, this is where your problem comes into. This is why when you're trying to do something like this, it's virtually impossible. You've got to make the horse and the rider not seem giants compared with that Ferris wheel.
I was going to say.
It's not easy. It's not easy to do, but you've got to. It's the only way I can see of doing it. Now, can you pull that all back to normal again?
Yep.
As it was before. Switch it back to normal, right. Now, having said all of that I've said, I wouldn't do it. Because I wouldn't do it because the horse and the rider are the most important things. And I would put them on grass and I would put a foggy background and I'd lose the Ferris wheel completely. It's a distraction and it would completely distract from the picture, in my opinion. And all that goes on around that fan or whatever it is, and the building, which I can't make any sense of, and certainly all the paraphernalia that's on the right-hand side on the grass, it just loses its point.
There's a lot of work to be done on that, isn't there? Taking things out.
A lot of work to be done, and I suppose if I was being brutally honest, and people insisted on the Ferris wheel, which is going to be really hard to draw anyway, and to make sense of, then I'd have to do more or less what I said I would do, but it's very, very difficult. My thoughts are that you should go back to the customer and say, I understand you want this Ferris wheel and you want the horse and rider, but I don't think it will work in this picture together. And tell them what I told you, that the Ferris wheel and all those bits and pieces behind will distract from the horse and rider. That's what I'd say. And see what they say. Tell them if they want the Ferris wheel, do another picture of it. Take the horse and rider out and just do a picture of the Ferris wheel for them. That won't satisfy them at all, because that's not what they're looking for. But you see, it's the point that I'm trying to make there. You know, what are you actually drawing? Mm-hmm. It's one of the problems you get with commission work, because they say, oh, I want that. Yeah, that'll do. You're an artist, you can do it. Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right then. Okay. All right. Well, that's good advice, and that's what they're here for, asking your opinion and how you would do things. So there you go. That's it. Okay, a few more here to do. This one's from Gerard. 2 pictures here. Hi, Colin and Steve. I've tried these portraits of my uncle and aunt, but I'm far from happy with them. Any ideas how I can improve either of them, or if I have to do them over again, what I have to do to get them better than they are? I haven't done them on stippled paper. Any advice would be really helpful.
Right. It depends what you're looking for, really. If you're looking at sketches, they're not bad. If you're looking at portraits, it's a whole new ball game. And the couple of things that look wrong here is I don't quite know where you've gone. I know he's got white hair in the picture, the photograph, and you've done him with dark hair. Now, you've done him with dark hair because you can't put white on white, and he would have had no hair at all, would he? So these are the first problem you've got, but you've got to you could get away with it because you could use the white hair and you could put that slight ochre look, you see, we have on the top. That would have contained it. So it would have been better to do that because you've got a better representation of the picture. And the glasses are non-existent, but they are on the picture, aren't they? He hasn't got glasses. So I would have thought you could have possibly done them without glasses. In other words, ask him to take them off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And done them without glasses. It would have looked better because at the moment it looks a bit odd the way you've done it. And I can't really go on any more than that because there's so much that would need to be done. You need to be much more strength with your colours. You know, it's just a week. But again, it depends on what you're looking for. If it was a sketch, it's not bad, and you could keep it like that. Now, the lady, you've got a brilliant likeness, I think, of that. That's really good, and her glasses are okay. Hair, well, there are areas of improvement there, and the face is same as the gentleman. You know, you need more depth in it, and it's not easy to do. Portraits are terribly difficult to produce. What can I say, really? I would say as a sketch it's not bad, but as a portrait, if it was presented as a portrait, then you've got a long way to go with it. And you need to look at pictures I've done to see how I've produced portraits and the colours that I've used and so on. So you need to go back into there. But I think I would do him without glasses and her with glasses because you've done quite a good job of that. Mm. So I can only really give you that advice if it's any help to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Gerard, for sending over your pictures. I hope that's helped. Last couple here from Belinda. Hi, Stephen and Colin. After finding and joining your site last year, I've taken art up for the first time and I'm really enjoying learning from your pastel tutorials and feedback sessions. I first completed your Jack Russell tutorial and then did my own paintings of these 2 dogs, which I would appreciate your feedback on. It was a challenge as these dogs were our family pets in the 80s and therefore these 2 old photos are my only reference for them. I've used my memory of the dogs and some artistic license for some of the details that are not clear from each photo. In the photos, the dog's eyes and nose I felt were too dark and lacking the detail I wanted to include, so I'd appreciate feedback on how I decided to interpret these features in my paintings. Any other comments and suggestions, improvements would be greatly appreciated.
And it was very good. And if we deal with the dog on the left first of all, I think you've done a brilliant job of that. Someone who's starting out, gosh, even got a background on, which is great. I think probably in a situation like this, where you've got most of the dog in, I would have completed the dog more or less as it is on the photograph. You know, with all of I wouldn't have tried to lose it like you've done, you know, with the fog. Sometimes you can get away with fog, as you know, with pictures I've done, and sometimes you can't. And in a situation like this, I don't think you could have got away with it. You could have made a better job, I think, if you'd have done the rest of the animal. even to the point where you could actually, I'm just thinking whether I would cut it down. You see, you've got to be very careful when you're doing any composition not to make them square. Now, I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times in this feedback show.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make square pictures. You either got to make them portrait or you've got to make them landscape. And if that means cutting bits of ear off, bit of paws off, you've got to do it. It makes it a better representation of a picture. But if we look at the way you've done it, I think it's brilliant. But that's the tip I could give you on that one. On the other one, that's a charming little animal. He's really lovely. And here the fog works quite well. It's quite attractive. The only thing I would have done, I think, probably, is keep it as it is, right? Exactly as it is. But where the back of the dog stretches out, it nearly touches the ear, doesn't it? I would have slanted that just a little bit more and lost it just before it got to the ear. Before where we have there. In other words, about halfway, I would have fogged it out because it's just a little bit top heavy, in my opinion. You see that light area that's running down under the ear, Steve? No, just in a bit from that and down a bit from that, down a bit from that. That's it, that light bit there. Now, I wouldn't have put the light in, but if you'd have carried on with the dark there, that's it, something like that, fogged it out there and brought it round and just chopped that little bit off, that would have looked, in my opinion, just a little bit better. But I'm not being critical. It is actually, as it is, it's pretty good. And I think you've done really well with it.
Okay.
I can't really give you any more advice because I think, considering what you've done and how you've done it, it's very good. The only other thing I would have done, and this is only a suggestion, you see you have the grey nose and the grey mouth on that dog.
Yeah.
It's a little bit foreign to the actual colour. I think it would have been better if you'd have made that more brown than black. You see what I mean? It just stands out a little bit much. I know what you've done and I will know why you've done it. And as you say, if you said, oh yeah, but he did have a black nose and he did, well, that's fine. But then that's the photograph that's wrong. In other words, and if the photograph's wrong, the colouring's wrong. You see, of the animal. These are other little tips that you've got. Maybe it's worth looking at other pictures you've got, if you've got any other photographs, and maybe that looks a bit orangey to me.
She does say these are the only pictures that she's used, and then she's used her memory from,
It's very, very difficult to do that, isn't it? And you found it hard. But considering you've only just started out, I think you've done very, very well. As I say, I compliment you all on the efforts you make, because it does. And sometimes when you look at pictures I do, and you think, well, I wonder how he got those compositions. But I won't take it on, or I spend quite a lot of time, in fact, before I actually do a picture, making sure I've got the pictures in the right place and the cut-off points at the right place. Very important, the composition.
Okay. Excellent. Lovely work, Belinda. That's it for this week. Thanks everyone for your submissions. Lots of mixed pictures in. No landscapes this week, other than that advice.
No.
Interesting. But we're going to have a landscape coming up for you soon on the membership site. So if you're a member, then look out for a landscape coming soon. We've just recently done the cheetah, which is going down great. And so if you've got a picture that you want us to look at and give you some advice on specific areas, then email us via the website, and all you have to do is be a member of any of our plans, and you get that service added on. And we'll be back next week with another podcast.
Yeah, it just struck me, Steve, one thing I'd like to bring up that's probably going to be of interest to people is if they'd like to submit their photographs before they start drawing and ask me how I would compose it from that photograph, it might help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after the event, it's a bit late, isn't it? Once it's all done, how would you have done it, Colin? It's better to say, how would you do it, Colin? And that might help. So if people don't mind doing that, just sending their photographs in that they want, a bit like Gabrielle did there. See, that was typical. That was great because you haven't done it yet. So I could then say, give her the tips, and now she can go away and decide what to do. And this might work. And it works well with feedback, because feedback is as important to find out how you should do it than what you've done wrong.
Okay. Yeah, good point. Very good point. Well, there you go. You can do that too. That's good. Good point. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Bye for now.